The world's most spectacular border ceremony takes place every day before dusk at Wagah border between India and Pakistan. As large crowds gather on either side of the gate, claps and cheers of patriotic chants, Pakistan Zindabad and Jai Hind can be heard. It's been called carefully choreographed contempt, a show of nationalism and aggression. The British had control over India for almost 250 years. At the end of World War II, a victorious but weakened Britain realized it could no longer hold on to India, the jewel of its imperial crown. That was due, in no small part, to the non-violent resistance pioneered by Mahatma Gandhi, which revolutionized the effort. Only toward the end of the long fight for Indian freedom had the two-nation theory ever been conceived. The struggle toward independence had been for the most part a united effort by the people of all religions in India. Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs fought for freedom side by side for the common goal. In the final year of the fight, partition became an option because of the bruised egos of the persons involved. The result was one of the most disastrous and bloody migrations in human history. India's struggle for freedom was not a war fought with arms. It was a mass movement which took decades. In the 1920s, 3 people emerged to be the leaders of the movement: Nehru, Jinnah, and Gandhi. After World War II, Britain's Prime Minister Attlee realized Britain doesn't have neither money nor resources to hold on to India anymore. A British cabinet mission was sent to India in March of 1946 to discuss with the representatives of India the question of Indian freedom. The 3-person team met with the leaders of both Indian National Congress and Muslim League. Jinnah made it clear that the Muslim majority areas should be grouped together to make an independent state with full autonomy. Congress maintained in the creation of an Indian federation. On May 16, 1946, a compromise was made between the Indian National Congress and the Muslim League. On the 10th of July, 1946, Nehru held a press conference that changed the course of history between the two parties. He said, Congress agreed only to participate in the Constituent Assembly and regarded itself free to change or modify the cabinet mission plan. This naturally angered Jinnah. He held a press conference on the 27th of July. He said, the demand for Pakistan is the only course left open for Muslim League. After 3 days of discussions, the Muslim League passed a resolution rejecting the cabinet mission plan. Jinnah didn't want to agree to any plans where they would be under Hindu majority government, which would make the Muslims powerless. Jinnah declared August 16, 1946 as the Direct Action Day as a call to all Muslims across the country. The 16th of August was a black day in the history of India. Unprecedented mob violence plunged the great city of Calcutta into a rampage of blood, murder, and terror. Thousands of lives were lost. The Calcutta killings reinforced the notion that Hindus and Muslims cannot live together harmoniously, was planted in the British leaders and the Indian National Congress. After the Calcutta killings, Muslims became more determined for their fight for a separate nation where they would feel safe from communal violence, a decision from which both Jinnah as well as the Congress's elite politicians would stand to benefit. Neither party wanted to compromise after that. The cabinet mission plan failed. The conflict continued. By the time the last viceroy to India, Lord Mountbatten, arrived in India in the March of 1947, Britain announced that they would leave India in June of 1948. There were already talks of partition. Lord Mountbatten wasn't a big supporter of the cabinet mission plan. He met with leaders of Congress and slowly changed their minds towards partition. Gandhi was initially very strongly opposed to the two-nation plan, but by May of 1947, even Gandhi was okay with the partition. Now that the partition seemed generally accepted, the question of where to draw the lines arose. In the June of 1947, Lord Mountbatten met with the leaders of both parties and went over the Mountbatten Plan. He announced August 15th of that year to be Independence Day. That's 10 months before the actual scheduled transfer of power. Sir Cyril Radcliffe, a British judge assigned to draw the borders of the two new states, was given barely 40 days. Mountbatten didn't want any backlash towards the British, so he kept the borders a secret until after independence. On August 14, 1947, Pakistan celebrated its independence.
And I naturally reciprocate his sentiments and we greatly appreciate his assurance of sympathy and support.
At the stroke of midnight of the 15th of August, India celebrated its independence from Britain. Nehru gave his most famous speech, Tryst of Destiny.
Long years ago, we made a trip with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge, not only or in full measure, but very substantially. At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom.
The joy was almost delirious, but lasted hardly 48 hours. The border towns were in a lot of confusion. They didn't know if they would be part of India or Pakistan. The communal violence had begun. 2 days after independence, Mountbatten finally announced the new borders. There began one of the greatest migrations in human history. It was rather an arbitrary line, which in some instances cut villages in two. Suddenly, people felt themselves on the wrong side of the new border. As millions of Muslims trekked to West Pakistan, while millions of Hindus and Sikhs headed in the opposite direction. According to some records, about 12 to 16 million migrated in all. About 1 million people didn't make it. It was one of the great human tragedies of the 20th century. The three religions attacked each other. People who a year before would have been attending each other's wedding parties are now murdering each other, raping each other's daughters, and roasting each other's babies on spits, said historian William Dalrymple. Lord Mountbatten said, "It had been obvious to anybody that there was going to be disturbances in the Punjab on the transfer of power, but I freely confess that I did not anticipate the scale and extent of what was going to happen, nor, so far as I am aware, did anyone in authority of India, Pakistan, and the United Kingdom anticipate this." Ever since 1947, India and Pakistan have nourished a deep-rooted mutual antipathy. Their biggest conflict was about the picturesque region of Kashmir. Kashmir was a princely state and was given the decision to decide either to accede to India or Pakistan. Kashmir chose India, but the region has a 60% Muslim population. India and Pakistan have fought 3 inclusive wars over the disputed region of Kashmir. The first one started right after independence, in October of 1947, and ended 2 years later. In 1971, they fought over the secession of East Pakistan, which became Bangladesh. In 1999, after Pakistani troops crossed into an area of Kashmir called Kargil, the two countries came alarmingly close to a nuclear exchange. Today, Kashmir remains a nuclear flashpoint. Not all is negative about India-Pakistan conflict. The Indian-Pakistan cricket rivalry is the biggest, most intense sport rivalries in the world. It is very similar to the display at Wagah border. Hundreds of millions of people tune in to watch the spectacle. Again with patriotism and aggression.